My name is Arden Hale, and I used to believe that if you worked hard enough, the world would reward you. But Savannah, Georgia, my hometown, has a way of reminding people like me that some doors don't open, no matter how hard you knock. Every summer morning smelled like magnolia and bleach. Magnolia from the trees lining the rich neighborhoods, and bleach from the cleaning supplies my mother carried in her bucket. She was a housekeeper for the Marston family, one of those old money dynasties that pretended their kindness was charity. I was 12 when I first stepped into the Marston estate, a white-columned mansion with ceilings high enough to echo your name if you dared to speak too loud. While my mom scrubbed floors, I'd sit quietly at the edge of the library, reading books the Marstons never touched. That's where I met Camilla Marston, their daughter. She was my age, but the way she looked at me made me feel like I was dirt beneath her shoes. "Don't touch the books," she said once, flipping her blonde hair. "Why not?" I asked. "Because they're not for people like you." That was the first time I realized wealth wasn't just money. It was power, dressed as politeness. Years passed. Mom and I kept working there. Christmas parties, charity dinners, and birthdays, filled with people pretending to care. And I kept my head down, studying hard. I had a dream: to earn a scholarship to the University of Georgia and finally leave this town behind. When I was 17, that dream came true. At least, it was supposed to. I'd been awarded the Savannah Rising Star Scholarship, a full ride based on academic merit. The day I got the letter, Mom cried. But 2 weeks later, I got another letter, saying the scholarship had been revoked due to a clerical reassessment. I didn't understand. Until I saw the announcement in the local paper. Recipient, Camilla Marston. My heart stopped. Camilla, the girl who never studied, who mocked my secondhand shoes, was smiling in a photo, holding my scholarship certificate. I ran to my mother, my voice breaking. "Mom, it was mine, it was mine." She looked devastated but not surprised. "Baby, people like them, they change things with a single phone call." And she was right. Later, I overheard one of the Marston maids whisper that Camilla's father had made a few donations to the scholarship board. That night, I sat in our small apartment, holding the rejection letter, my tears blurring the ink. Everything I had worked for, gone. All because I was born on the wrong side of Savannah. But inside that pain, something changed. It wasn't just sadness, it was fire. A quiet, sharp kind of fire that didn't scream. It planned. "One day," I whispered, "they'll remember my name." The next morning, I went to the Marston mansion one last time. Camilla was on the porch, showing off her new laptop, a gift for her college success. "I guess hard work pays off." She smirked. "Yeah," I said softly, "for some people." She laughed and turned away. But before I left, I looked up at that house, its shining windows, its marble steps, and made myself a promise. I'd come back, not as their maid, not as their victim, but as the woman who would own everything they once used to crush me. And as the Georgia sun rose behind the mansion, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my revenge. Years passed, and the girl who once scrubbed floors in the Marston mansion learned to build her own empire. After losing the scholarship, I refused to let Savannah bury me. I took a job waiting tables at a small diner off Whitaker Street, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. It wasn't glamorous, but every tip, every dollar went into one goal: escape. When customers asked what I was saving for, I'd smile and say, "A view better than this one." 3 years later, I finally left Savannah with 2 suitcases, $500, and a promise to myself: I'd never let anyone steal my future again. Atlanta was chaos, and opportunity rolled into one. I crashed on a friend's couch and worked days at a real estate office as an assistant. It wasn't much, but I learned fast, faster than anyone expected. Within a year, I was managing listings, closing small sales, and soaking up every bit of knowledge I could. I watched people walk into offices with confidence, talk about investments, property values, and renovations like they owned the city. And I told myself, one day, that'll be me. 5 years later, it was. By 25, I'd started my own small agency, Hale and Cohen Properties. At first, people laughed at the idea of a girl with no connections running her own firm, but I had something they didn't: hunger. I worked 16-hour days, called clients at midnight, studied market data until my eyes burned. Every closed deal was a reminder that I was rewriting my story, one sale at a time. Then one afternoon, a call came in that made my world stop. "Hi, this is Michael from the Marston estate. We heard your firm handles high-value acquisitions. We'd like to discuss a potential sale." The name hit me like a thunderclap. Marston Estate. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I turned off my monitor, leaned back in my chair, and let the words sink in. The mansion. Their mansion. They were selling it. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Of course," I said. "I'd be happy to arrange a meeting." When I hung up, my reflection in the office window stared back at me, calm on the outside, but trembling underneath. It had been nearly 10 years since I'd last walked those halls, since I'd been that invisible girl polishing someone else's silverware. Now I was the one who could buy the silverware, and the house that came with it. That night, I drove back to Savannah. The same roads, the same trees, but I wasn't the same girl. I parked across from the mansion gates. The lights inside flickered weakly, as if the place itself had grown tired. The Marston nameplate was still there, though faded. I heard voices behind the gate, laughter, music, clinking glasses. Some things never change. But this time, I wasn't holding a mop. I was holding the deed papers in my briefcase. Inside, my heart was a storm. Excitement, fear, disbelief. Part of me wanted to turn back, to stay the girl who dreamed instead of the woman who conquered. But another part, the stronger part, whispered, "You worked for this. You earned this." The next morning, I met with their estate manager at a cafe downtown. He looked exhausted, like someone who'd seen better years. "The family's in trouble," he admitted. "Camilla's father made some bad investments. They're liquidating assets quietly." My lips almost curved into a smile. Karma had finally come home. "Well," I said, "tell them Hale and Coers would be honored to make an offer." That night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the Savannah River, holding a glass of wine and staring at the reflection of the city lights. It felt surreal, poetic even. The place that once broke me was now about to belong to me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about buying the house. It was about reclaiming my power. Still, a question lingered in my mind. Would I show them mercy? Or make them feel the humiliation I once did? The thought lingered as the night breeze swept through the balcony. I took a sip of wine and whispered to the wind, "We'll see." The morning sun cut through my office blinds, streaking the room in gold and shadow. I had barely slept. My mind kept looping back to yesterday, the drive past the Whitmore estate, the peeling paint on the gates that used to intimidate me, the memory of Violet's smirk when she opened that envelope years ago. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the bitterness grounding me. This was the day my team and I would present our formal offer to buy the Whitmore property. "Arden," my assistant Maya, poked her head in. "The documents are finalized. They accepted the initial meeting request." I smiled, though my stomach twisted. "Perfect. Schedule it for Friday, at the estate." She blinked. "At their house?" "Yes," I said softly, "right where it all started." Driving to the estate that Friday felt like driving into the past. Spanish moss hung from the trees, swaying lazily in the humid Savannah air. The Whitmore mansion loomed in the distance, still beautiful, but with an unmistakable sadness, like time had been less kind than money ever could be. I parked, smoothed my blazer, and stepped out. The gravel crunched beneath my heels. The front door opened, and there she was, Violet Whitmore. Still radiant, still perfectly put together, but the spark in her eyes had dimmed. "Arden Hale?" she said, tilting her head. "It's been a long time." Her tone carried both surprise and unease. "Too long," I replied, offering my hand. "It's good to see you again, Violet." She didn't take it right away. Her hesitation told me everything. I was no longer the maid's daughter she remembered. Inside, her mother, Mrs. Whitmore, greeted me politely but coldly, the same way she used to when I was a child, following my mom around with a dust rag. I remembered how Mrs. Whitmore once told my mother, "People like us help people like you survive. Don't forget that." Now the power balance had shifted. We sat in the grand parlor. I could still picture the spot where I'd once tripped while vacuuming, the laughter from Violet and her friends echoing around me. "Your company's proposal is generous," Mrs. Whitmore said stiffly. "But I must ask, why this property? Surely there are other estates in Savannah." I smiled, taking a sip of water. "This one has sentimental value." Violet's eyes flickered with recognition. For a moment, the air thickened. "I remember," Violet said, a faint smirk returning. "You used to live here. Well, not here exactly. Down by the servants' quarters." I didn't flinch. "That's right. My mom worked for your family for 15 years. Mrs. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. "I see." They didn't see. Not really. Because back then, they didn't care to look. As I went over the purchase terms, I noticed Violet's diamond ring catching the light. It glimmered like her ambition used to. "So," she said, pretending to sound casual, "you're the owner now? Of Hale Properties?" "Yes," I said simply. "I built it from scratch. Started with one small renovation firm, and now," I gestured toward the portfolio, "we handle multi-million-dollar acquisitions, including this one." Her jaw tightened. The rest of the meeting was professional, on the surface. But underneath, tension coiled like a snake ready to strike. When it ended, Violet walked me to the door. "You've come a long way, Arden," she said quietly. "But why this house?" I paused. The sunlight hit her face, just like that day years ago when she took my scholarship. "Because I never got to finish my story here," I said. "Until now." Her expression faltered. I turned to leave, but before I reached my car, I heard her call out, "You really think buying this place will fix what happened?" I stopped. "No," I said without turning around, "but it'll make sure no one ever treats another girl the way you treated me." Then I drove off, heart pounding, not from anger this time, but power. That night, I stood by my apartment window, the Savannah skyline glowing in the distance. This wasn't just business anymore. It was personal, dangerously so. And yet, something inside me whispered that this revenge would demand more than I was ready to give. Still, I couldn't stop now. Not when I'd come this far. The following week, things started to move quickly. The Whitmore's lawyer reached out. Apparently, they were considering other offers. Typical. I knew that was Violet's way of trying to make me sweat, to remind me she still had power. But this wasn't the same game anymore. I had resources, strategy, and patience now. Still, every move I made had to be perfect. I wasn't just buying property. I was reclaiming the years they stole from me. That afternoon, Maya came in, tablet in hand. "They're stalling," she said, scrolling through the email thread. "Looks like they want to raise the price." "Of course they do," I murmured. "It's not about money, it's about control." Maya frowned. "So what's the plan? You want me to counteroffer?" I looked out the window, watching the gray Savannah clouds roll in. "No, let them think they're winning. For now." Because I had something bigger planned. That night, I went through old boxes my mom had left me after she passed. Inside were letters, photos, and one small, faded envelope, the scholarship acceptance I was supposed to get. The one that had my name scratched out and replaced with Violet Whitmore's. The memory hit me hard. The day they announced the scholarship at school, Violet had acted surprised. She'd hugged me and said, "Oh my God, I'm sure you'll get into another school." And then she walked across that stage smiling, holding what should have been mine. I clenched the letter in my hands, my heart pounding with all the things I'd never said. That was the moment my life split in two. The girl who believed she could be someone, and the woman who learned that no one was coming to save her. I built everything from that pain. But standing there, holding the evidence of what she stole, I realized something. I didn't want revenge just to hurt Violet. I wanted her to see what she'd created. The next day, I arranged a charity gala through my company, a real estate fundraising event for underprivileged students. It would be hosted at the same estate right before the sale finalized. A quiet, poetic twist. When the Whitmores' representative called to confirm, I could almost hear the disbelief in his voice. "Yes," I said smoothly. "The event will be held at the Whitmore property. We'll cover all arrangements." He hesitated. "You're aware the property isn't officially sold yet?" "I'm aware," I replied, smiling. "But soon it will be." 2 days later, I received a message. From her. "Violet, we need to talk. Alone, tomorrow." I hesitated before replying. "Fine, noon, at the cafe on Broughton Street." When I walked in, she was already there, sunglasses on, stirring her coffee like it had personally offended her. "Arden," she said, taking them off. "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Enjoying what?" "This little performance," she said bitterly. "Coming back here, trying to humiliate us. You think I don't know what you're doing?" I leaned back in my chair. "Violet, if I wanted to humiliate you, I wouldn't be sitting here having coffee. I'd just buy your house and throw a party." Her lips twitched. "You already are." I smiled slightly. "Maybe, but it's not about that." She looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, "You don't understand. Things weren't perfect for me either." I frowned. "Excuse me?" My parents wanted a daughter who could keep up appearances, who looked good, sounded perfect, won awards. That scholarship wasn't just for me, it was for them. I felt a flicker of confusion, but I didn't let it show. "So what? That excuse is stealing someone's future?" Her voice cracked. "No, it doesn't. But I wasn't as free as you think." For a moment, silence stretched between us. The past, the lies, the years. It all sat heavy in the air. I wanted to hate her. I should have hated her. But instead, I felt something else. Pity. "Do you know what it's like?" I said softly. "To watch your mother scrub someone else's floors while you study by lamplight? Just to dream of a chance that never comes?" Violet's eyes glistened. "Do you know what it's like to have everything and still feel like you're drowning?" We were two sides of the same coin, one crushed by poverty, the other by pressure. But only one of us had stolen to survive. As I stood to leave, Violet's hand shot out and grabbed mine. "Arden," she whispered, "please, don't take the house. It's all my mother has left." Her words hit harder than I expected. I stared down at her trembling fingers, then slowly pulled my hand away. "I'll think about it," I said. And I meant it. But as I walked out of the cafe into the humid Savannah air, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about what you take, it's about what you teach. That night, I got a call from Maya. "Arden," she said urgently, "you need to see this." She sent a link. It was a news article. "Whitmore Estate faces foreclosure, massive debt revealed." My stomach dropped. So that's why they wanted to raise the price. The Whitmores weren't fighting me out of pride anymore. They were fighting because they were desperate. And suddenly, everything shifted. This wasn't just a deal. It was a reckoning. The night Savannah glowed under golden streetlights, I stood in front of the glass window of my office. My reflection looked nothing like the girl who once cleaned bathrooms in the Carrington mansion. Power had changed me. Or maybe it had simply revealed who I'd always been. Tomorrow was the closing day. The day Carrington Estate would officially belong to me. But instead of satisfaction, a storm churned inside me. Tyler, my business partner, and the man who knew too much about my past, had started acting strange. He'd been meeting with Victoria behind my back. Victoria Carrington, the same woman who stole my scholarship, my dream, and almost broke me. Now she was trying to crawl back into the spotlight by manipulating Tyler. That night, my phone buzzed with a message. "Meet me at the old marina. It's about Victoria. Don't tell anyone. Tyler." Something about it felt off, but curiosity and anger pulled me in. When I arrived, the wind smelled of salt and secrets. The wooden planks creaked beneath my heels as I walked down the pier. Then I saw him, standing under the flickering lamp. "Tyler," I called softly, "what's going on?" He looked guilty, almost afraid. "Arden, you need to stop this deal," he said. "Victoria. She's planning to expose your past. The fake name, the records, everything. She knows you're the maid's daughter." I froze, my pulse spiked. "How?" "She hired a private investigator. She's trying to prove you lied your way into this position. If she goes public—" "She won't," I snapped, cutting him off, "because I'll end it before she starts." Tyler grabbed my wrist. "Arden, listen to me. Revenge has already taken enough from you. Don't let it turn you into her." For a moment, his words pierced through my armor. But then I saw it. The glint of movement behind the warehouse door. A shadow. A phone camera pointed at us. Victoria. She'd set me up. She wanted footage of me losing control. I smiled coldly, letting go of Tyler's wrist. "You're right," I said softly. "I won't become her." I turned toward the shadow and raised my voice. "Victoria, you might want to come out. You're not as invisible as you think." There was silence, then slow footsteps. Victoria Carrington emerged, elegant as ever, dressed in a white coat like some fallen angel. "Well," she said, smiling, "Savannah's favorite success story. Still playing the poor girl pretending to be rich? Still playing the princess pretending to be relevant?" I shot back. She laughed. "You can take everything I own, Arden, but you'll never be me." I stepped closer, my heels echoing against the dock. "Good. Because I'd rather burn this world down than live as a fraud like you." We were inches apart now, her perfume, sweet and venomous. Victoria leaned in. "Tomorrow, I'll tell them who you really are, the cleaning lady's daughter. Let's see how long your empire lasts after that." I whispered, calm and deliberate. "Then I guess I'll see you at the auction, darling." And I walked away, her threat hanging in the air like the taste of blood. But as I reached my car, a thought clawed at me. If she wanted to destroy me tomorrow, maybe it was time I destroyed her first. The morning after Victoria's threat, Savannah tasted like metal. Every siren sounded too loud. Every headline felt like a hand on my throat. I slept badly. Not because I feared losing the house, I'd survived worse, but because the kind of exposure she promised would strip everything down to the raw bones of who I was. Not all revenge is public spectacle. Some of it is delicate, surgical. Some of it asks you to decide how far you'll let people look into you. Tyler met me at Hale & Co. with the look of a man who hadn't slept either. He pulled me aside before we went into the morning meeting. "Arden," he said, voice low. "She's more dangerous than we thought. The PI didn't just dig into your past. He dug into bank transfers, tax filings, shell companies tied to the Carringtons. She's got dirt that could make the papers run for weeks." My first reaction was anger, hot, immediate, hungry. Then a second, quieter voice said, "Plan. Don't react." Maya arrived with dossiers in a slim folder. Emails, receipts, a few scanned letters. She'd been the quiet engine of the company from day one, and now she was our intelligence officer. "Arden," she said, pushing the folder across the table. "I found this in a public records dump. It looks like Victoria's mother moved a series of donations through a private foundation. Timing matches when the scholarship board suddenly made that clerical reassessment." For a moment, I sat on the edge of the desk and let the facts settle around me like dust. Whatever Victoria had on me, I now had on her. Not just bitterness or rumor, real, traceable evidence. Bribes funneled through a charity. Documents showing transfers timed to coincide with scholarship decisions. Ledgers listing accounts under assumed names. I felt my hands go steady. Something in me unclenched. "You think that's enough?" Tyler asked, cautious. "If we leak it, she'll fight back. She'll sue. She'll try to bury us in legal fees. And she might still call the press about your fraud first. Then we don't leak, I said. We publish. My voice surprised me. Hard and sure. We go to an investigative journalist. Not a blog. Someone with a reach and a legal team who can withstand the pushback. We hand over everything with context. We don't use it to humiliate. We use it to show how systems were bent, how people like my mother were used as pawns. Maya nodded. I know someone. Camille Ortega. She used to work at the Tribune and now runs an independent investigative outlet. She'll run with this, but she needs proof she can defend. She needs the receipts. By noon, the dossier was in Camille's hands. She read, her brow knit into tight lines, then looked up at me. Arden, this is explosive, but it's credible. I can run this. And I'll include the scholarship board records, the foundation filings, the bank transfers. If this holds, it won't be about you as a person. It'll be about a broken system. I realized in that moment that my rage had matured into something else. I didn't want to watch Violet humiliated on live streams. I wanted the truth made public so it could heal more than my own bruised pride. The plan was surgical. Camille would publish a deep dive the morning of the auction. The auction would be live streamed for legal transparency. We'd put both stories next to each other, the sale of the house and the unraveling of the forces that protected the Whitmore, Carrington, whatever name they used, for decades. There were risks. Camille's team warned us. Subpoenas, threats, smear attempts. We could lose investors. And Victoria might strike first, releasing the PI's footage of me undercutting myself. Staged clips, edited conversations, out-of-context lines meant to make me look like an imposter. We prepared for that. Tyler wired escrow funds into a separate account. Maya secured extra legal counsel on retainer. I rewired my own phone, changed my passwords, archived years of messages, and sat with old papers until my eyes blurred. The night before the auction, I stood in front of the empty Carrington ballroom. It was quiet except for the hum of the chandeliers and the distant sound of traffic. The place smelled faintly of lemon polish and history. I walked the length of the room, hands on the back of a chair, feeling the wood under my palms. Memories jutted out like old nails. The scuff where I fell at 12, the corner of a book I'd once hidden behind, a scratch near the baseboard where my mother had knelt to polish. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass of a French door and breathed Savannah air into my lungs. This wasn't just about the house. It was about reclaiming dignity for anyone who'd been passed over because someone else could buy influence. At 6 a.m., Camille called. Her voice was steady but urgent. We're live at 9. My heart jumped. Are you sure? I asked. They can pull it. They can get a restraining order. We've triple-checked sources, she said, and we've prepped the legal layer. We go live. We'll embed the records and the bank confirmations. This will run with context. Outside, the sun was a flat coin on the horizon. I felt the ice in my stomach melt into something like resolve. Then my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. We have footage. If it goes up, we go public with everything first. Walk away, Arden. No name, no number I recognized. I typed a reply my fingers wanted to spit fire through, but I stopped. I thought of my mother, of the girl who learned to read at dawn and polish silver at dusk. I forwarded the text to Camille with a single line. We've been warned. Publish anyway. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat. Camille replied almost immediately. We go live in 3 hours. I closed my eyes, and for a second I heard my younger self, the one who'd whispered about being remembered. We'll be remembered, I told that girl. But not for the way they tried to make us small. Then I opened my laptop and watched the countdown to the auction light up on the screen. 3 hours until the gavel. 3 hours until the story hit the city and, possibly, the country. I didn't know if I'd chosen mercy or spectacle. I only knew I was standing on the edge of something enormous, and that when I leapt, I would not be alone. As the clock ticked down, a final notification popped up from Camille. "We're live in 3 minutes." And in the soft hum of my office, everything held its breath. At 9 a.m. sharp, the story went live. Camille's article exploded across every major feed within minutes. Scholarship scandal, how the Carrington family bought academic futures. Screenshots of documents, highlighted ledgers, timestamps of donations. Everything was there. Within an hour, the story hit national news. By 9:45, I was sitting in my office at Hale & Coker's, phone buzzing non-stop. The city of Savannah was awake and watching. I turned on the television. There it was, the Carrington mansion, shown in slow pans, overlaid with Camille's narration. Her voice was calm, journalistic, not vengeful. She spoke about inequality and inherited influence, not names. But the names were obvious. And somewhere in that narrative, between the facts and the faces, was me. Tyler burst into the room, his tie crooked, his phone in hand. "Arden, they've issued a statement. Victoria's father is calling it all lies. They're threatening legal action." I nodded. Expected. He looked at me again, almost in disbelief. "You're calm." "I've had years to rehearse this," I said softly. "Besides, the truth doesn't need panic. It just needs persistence." The auction was scheduled for 11:30. By 10 Clarcy, the Carrington PR machine was in overdrive. Their lawyers stood on courthouse steps, reading a carefully crafted denial. But the damage was already done. Camille's article had been shared 500,000 times, and the hashtag scholarship scandal was trending worldwide. I wasn't celebrating. My hands trembled slightly as I scrolled. There was something deeply strange about watching your own revenge unfold in real time. It didn't feel victorious. It felt heavy. Maya stepped in with coffee. "You okay?" I looked up at her. I thought I'd feel vindicated. "And?" "I just feel quiet." She smiled knowingly. "That's what real closure feels like. It's not fire. It's peace." Then her phone buzzed. She read the message, her face turning pale. "Arden, you need to see this." She turned the screen to me. A video posted by a local gossip outlet. Title: CEO Arden Hale. Not who she says she is? The thumbnail was a blurry freeze frame of me from years ago, wearing my mother's cleaning uniform, holding a bucket, face half hidden by a window reflection. My stomach dropped. I pressed play. A man's voice narrated. Sources confirm that Arden Hale, the supposed real estate prodigy, once worked as domestic help in the very mansion she now seeks to acquire. Did she lie about her background to manipulate investors? The video cut to spliced clips, pieces of my old interviews edited out of context. Then an image of my mother, grainy, her name tagged. They had gone after her. I gripped the edge of my desk. For the first time that morning, my throat burned. This wasn't about exposure anymore. It was about erasure. "Camille warned this might happen," Maya whispered. "Do we respond?" I stood slowly. "No, we don't fight lies with panic. We let truth breathe." I took a breath and called Camille. "They've released something. About my mother." "I saw," she said quietly. "We're countering it now. I'm preparing a follow-up. Your verified background, employment records, and the context. We'll reframe it. The woman they're shaming is the same woman who built herself from dust." Her words steadied me. At 11:15, we arrived at the auction. The air was electric. Reporters lined the front steps, cameras flashing. The Carringtons stood at the entrance, heads high, pretending control. Victoria saw me first. Her expression flickered. Not anger, not arrogance, but something close to panic. She walked toward me, voice low but sharp. "You think you've won? You've humiliated my family? You think they'll ever let you live this down?" I met her eyes. "You did that yourself years ago. I just stopped cleaning up your mess." The doors opened. Inside, chandeliers blazed against marble. Every seat was filled. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Lot number 12, the Carrington estate. I took my seat in the front row, heart steady now. The bids began, quick, tense, escalating. The Carrington lawyer lifted his paddle. So did I. Voices rose, cameras flashed, the numbers climbed. At 2.1 million, the room went silent. All in favor? The auctioneer said. His gavel hovered. Sold, to Hale & Co. The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. Victoria turned white. Her father's jaw locked. The press swarmed. But I just stood there, the marble floor cold under my heels, the air suddenly lighter. It was done. Outside, reporters shouted questions. I paused, turned once toward the mansion, and saw my mother's reflection in the window. Faint, smiling, like morning light, I whispered, "We're home." Then walked away. I arrived at the Hargroves' mansion 2 days later, not as the maid's daughter this time, but as a guest of honor. The irony didn't escape me. The same driveway where I used to drag trash bags was now lined with white roses and luxury cars. Inside, the house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just grown. Mrs. Hargrove was the first to greet me. She looked like she'd aged 20 years since I last saw her, though she tried to hide it behind a stiff smile. "Arden, my dear, it's been so long." Her voice quivered, half surprise, half fear. "Mrs. Hargrove," I said calmly, extending my hand. "It's been quite a journey." We sat in the same sunroom where, years ago, I used to serve tea to her bridge club. Now she poured mine. "You've done well for yourself," she said, forcing a laugh. "Who would have thought the maid's little girl would come this far?" Her words were wrapped in sugar, but they still stung. I smiled politely. "You'd be surprised what people can do when no one's watching." Her gaze dropped to her trembling hands. "I suppose you're here about the estate. Lila told me your company wants to buy it." "Yes," I said. "We've made an offer. A generous one." The door opened, and Lila walked in. She was still beautiful, still polished, but the confidence that once dripped from her like perfume was gone. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Arden?" she whispered, like saying my name might burn her tongue. "Hello, Lila." I didn't stand. "You look the same." She laughed weakly. "I'd say the same about you, but that would be a lie." Mrs. Hargrove glanced between us, her expression tightening. "Girls, maybe we should—" "No," Lila interrupted. "Let's talk. Woman to woman." We stepped out to the balcony, overlooking the estate's old oak trees. I remembered climbing one of them as a kid, only to be yelled at because Hargrove branches aren't for servants. "I know what you're doing," Lila said, her tone sharp. "You're buying this place to humiliate me, to get back at me." I tilted my head. "You think I'd spend millions just for that? You hated me." "I didn't hate you," I said softly. "I pitied you." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to pity me. You have everything now. Money, power, respect. What more do you want?" "Closure." She blinked. "Closure?" "Yes. You stole my scholarship, Lila. You laughed when I cried. You made me feel like I was nothing. And for years, I believed you." Her face fell. "I was young," she said weakly. "Stupid. My parents made me compete. I didn't mean to." "You did mean to," I said. "You meant every word, every cruel laugh, every time you reminded me that I didn't belong." The silence between us was heavy. Then she whispered, "So what now? You own me?" I looked out at the trees. "No, I'm not here to own you, Lila. I'm here to offer you something." She frowned. "What kind of offer?" "Work for me," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "I'm expanding my firm. You're good at design, aren't you? I remember you used to sketch in your notebooks during class. You have taste. You just lack direction." Lila blinked, as if I'd spoken another language. "You want me to work for you? After everything?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because revenge isn't about destroying someone," I said quietly. "It's about showing them you never needed to." She stared at me, shocked, silent. And for the first time since we were teenagers, I saw genuine humility in her eyes. Finally, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it. Good, I said. Then we start over. When I walked away from that balcony, the air felt lighter, not because I'd won, but because I'd let go. As I reached the gate, Mrs. Hargrove stopped me. Arden, she said softly, your mother would be proud of you. I smiled. She already is. Then I looked back at the mansion, the same one that once made me feel so small. Now it was just a house, and I was free. The following weeks were strange, not because of tension, but because of calm. For the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting for survival, approval, or revenge. I was simply living. Lila started working at the firm. I didn't announce who she was to anyone. I just introduced her as Lila, our new design consultant. No one knew our history, and to my surprise, she was good, quiet, focused, and humble in a way I'd never seen before. One afternoon, I found her sitting in the office lounge, sketching on her tablet. The lines were soft, elegant, the kind of beauty that used to come with arrogance. Now it came with peace. She noticed me watching. You still stare like you're analyzing every line. I smiled. Occupational hazard. We shared a small laugh. For a moment, it almost felt like we were just two women, not enemies, not opposites, but equals. Later that week, she approached me after a meeting. Arden, she said, there's something I need to tell you. I set down my coffee. Go ahead. She took a deep breath. When I stole your scholarship, it wasn't just to win. My father made me. He found out your mother was cleaning for us and said it would look bad if I lost to the help's daughter. I hated it, but I did it anyway, and I've hated myself for it ever since. Her words hit like quiet thunder, not loud, but heavy. I stayed silent. Then she said softly, I'm sorry. For years I imagined that apology. I thought it would feel triumphant, satisfying, like victory. But standing there, I just felt human. I looked her in the eyes. I forgive you. Tears welled in hers instantly. You shouldn't. Maybe not, I said. But if I don't, then you still own part of me, and I'm done being owned by the past. She nodded, covering her mouth, trying not to cry. That night, I drove past the old estate one last time. It was empty now. Lights off, gates locked. The Hargrove nameplate was gone, replaced by Hale Development Group. My company, my name. The girl who used to scrub their floors now owned the land beneath their feet. But somehow, that victory didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like justice wrapped in mercy. The next morning, I stood in front of my team, the people who helped me rise from nothing. I want to name our next project after my mother, I announced. The Hale Foundation. To fund scholarships for girls like me, who are told they don't belong. The room broke into applause. But my chest only felt full when I saw Lila clapping too, eyes red but smiling. Months passed. One day, she came to my office again. I got accepted into an interior architecture program, she said shyly. I thought, maybe it's time I earned something honestly. I smiled. That's exactly the kind of redemption this world needs. She laughed, half crying. You really are impossible to hate. Good, I said. Then my revenge worked. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the Savannah skyline glow under a soft sunset. If you'd told the girl I once was, the one with calloused hands and a bruised heart, that she'd find peace through forgiveness, she wouldn't have believed you. But now I understood. Revenge can build walls. Forgiveness builds freedom. And in the end, that was the sweetest kind of victory. The grand hall of the Hale estate glowed with golden chandeliers, laughter echoing off the marble walls. Tonight wasn't just another high society gala. It was the night Arden Hale would take everything back. I stood at the top of the staircase wearing a midnight blue gown that shimmered under the light. Every camera turned toward me as whispers rippled through the crowd. She's back, someone said. That's Arden Hale, the girl who used to clean this place. Yes, The maid's daughter was now the one hosting the party. Evelyn stood across the room, her face pale beneath the perfect makeup. The invitation she received had said, "For old friends and new beginnings." She didn't know I was the one behind it. Not until now. As I descended the stairs, our eyes locked. Time froze. 2 decades of bitterness, jealousy, and hidden scars hanging between us. "Arden?" she breathed, forcing a smile. "You look different." "I could say the same," I replied calmly. "It's been a long road from scrubbing your floors to owning them." Her jaw clenched. The crowd sensed the tension, but they thought it was an old friendship rekindled. They had no idea what was about to unfold. After the champagne toasts, I took the microphone. "Tonight," I began, "is a celebration of transformation, of how life can turn pain into power." Evelyn's mother smiled proudly, thinking I meant her daughter. Then, on the large screen behind me, the slideshow began. Not the one Evelyn expected. Instead of charity events or happy memories, images appeared. A copy of my revoked scholarship letter. Emails from Evelyn pretending to be me. A photo of her bragging to friends about it. Gasps filled the hall. People turned toward Evelyn in disbelief. I continued softly. "Sometimes, people steal from you not because they need it, but because they can. Because they think you'll never rise high enough to face them." Evelyn stumbled backward, her perfect world cracking in front of Savannah's elite. I could have stopped there. I could have let humiliation destroy her the way she once destroyed me. But I didn't. I took a deep breath. "Evelyn," I said gently, "this isn't revenge. This is truth. I forgave you long ago, but I wanted you to remember that every lie has a cost." Silence. Then I walked off the stage, leaving her trembling under the lights. Outside, the night air was cool, calm. I looked up at the stars, the same stars I used to watch as a cleaning girl, dreaming of freedom. Liam walked beside me, his hand brushing mine. "You did it," he whispered. "You won." I smiled faintly. "No," I said. "I just stopped fighting ghosts." Behind us, the laughter inside turned uneasy. In front of us, the future stretched open, clean, endless, and full of light.